My dad took my apartment because I deceived him. It all started on a cold November evening. I was sitting in my apartment scrolling through social media when my phone rang. It was my dad. His voice was stern and authoritative, the way it always was when he was upset. "Come over to my house," he said, not giving me any chance to respond before hanging up. My stomach churned with unease as I made my way to his place. I knew I had done something wrong, but I wasn't sure what it was. My dad had always been strict and hard to please, and I had tried my best to stay on his good side. But somehow, I had messed up. When I arrived, he was standing in the living room, his face red with anger. He didn't offer me a seat or anything to drink. Instead, he launched straight into it. "Do you think I'm stupid?" he asked, his voice cold and cutting. "Do you think I wouldn't find out what you've been doing?" I had no idea what he was talking about. "Dad, I don't understand," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. He walked over to a drawer, pulled out a stack of papers, and threw them on the table in front of me. "Explain this," he said. I looked down and saw bank statements, credit card bills, and loan documents. My heart sank. I had been in over my head with debts and had taken out loans without telling him. I had even forged his signature on a couple of documents to get better rates. "Dad, I stammered, trying to come up with an explanation. But there was nothing I could say that would make it better. He shook his head, his eyes filled with disappointment. "I trusted you," he said. "I gave you that apartment because I thought you were responsible enough to handle it. Clearly, I was wrong." I felt a lump in my throat. The apartment had been a gift from him, a sign of his trust and confidence in me, and I had ruined it. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. "Sorry isn't enough," he said harshly. "You've deceived me, and now you're going to face the consequences." He told me that he was taking the apartment back. It was legally still in his name, so there was nothing I could do to stop him. I felt my world crumble around me. The apartment had been my safe haven, my space to call my own, and now it was being taken away because of my foolishness. I moved back into his house temporarily, feeling ashamed and defeated. Every day I had to face his disappointment and anger. It was a constant reminder of how badly I had messed up. Over the next few months, I worked hard to pay off my debts and regain his trust. I took on extra shifts at work, cut back on unnecessary expenses, and even attended financial counseling sessions. It was tough, but I knew I had to do it if I ever wanted to make things right. Slowly, my dad started to see that I was serious about turning my life around. He didn't forgive me immediately, but he acknowledged my efforts. It was a small step, but it meant the world to me. One day, he called me into his study. I braced myself for another lecture, but instead, he handed me a set of keys. "These are for a new apartment," he said. "It's not as nice as the old one, but it's a start. Don't make me regret this." I felt a surge of gratitude and relief. It wasn't the grand gesture of forgiveness I had hoped for, but it was a second chance, and I was determined not to waste it. I moved into the new apartment and continued working hard to rebuild my life. My relationship with my dad was still strained, but we were making progress. I knew it would take time to fully regain his trust, but I was willing to put in the effort. As the years went by, I learned to be more responsible with my finances and more honest in my dealings. I never wanted to go through that kind of pain and disappointment again. And slowly, my dad and I started to rebuild our relationship. It was never the same as before, but we found a new kind of understanding and respect. In the end, losing the apartment had been a harsh lesson, but it was one that I needed to learn. It taught me the value of trust, responsibility, and the importance of facing the consequences of my actions. And while it was a painful experience, it ultimately helped me become a better person. The new apartment was modest but comfortable. It wasn't in the best part of town, but it was mine. And that was enough. I spent my first few weeks there making it feel like home. I bought a few pieces of secondhand furniture, hung some of my favorite posters on the walls, and did my best to create a space where I could rebuild my life. My dad's words echoed in my mind every day. Don't make me regret this. I was determined not to let him down again. I continued working hard, taking on as many shifts as I could at the restaurant where I worked. I also started taking night classes at the local community college, hoping to eventually earn a degree and find a better job. The first few months were tough. I was constantly exhausted, juggling work, classes, and trying to maintain some semblance of a social life. But I kept pushing forward, motivated by the desire to prove to my dad and to myself that I could be responsible and trustworthy. One evening, after a particularly long day, I received an unexpected visit. It was my dad. He stood at my door looking slightly uncomfortable. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Of course," I replied, stepping aside to let him enter. He looked around the small apartment, taking in the worn furniture and the personal touches I had added. "You've done a nice job with the place," he said. "Thanks," I said, feeling a mixture of pride and nervousness. We sat down at the small kitchen table, and he cleared his throat. "I wanted to talk to you about something," he began. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I realize that I may have been too harsh. I was angry and disappointed, but I also see how hard you've been working to make things right." I nodded, not sure where he was going with this. "I want you to know that I'm proud of you," he continued. "You've shown a lot of determination and responsibility, and I respect that." His words took me by surprise. I had been working so hard to earn his approval, and hearing him say that he was proud of me meant more than I could express. "Thank you, Dad," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "That means a lot to me." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past few months hanging between us. Then he spoke again. "I also want to offer you some help," he said. "I know things have been tough for you, and I want to support you in any way I can. Whether it's with your studies, your job, or anything else, I'm here for you." His offer of support was a lifeline. I had been trying to do everything on my own, but knowing that I had my dad in my corner made a huge difference. "Thank you," I said again, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "I appreciate it more than you know." Over the next few months, my dad's support made a significant impact. He helped me with my tuition fees, giving me the financial stability I needed to focus on my studies. He also used his connections to help me find a better job, one that allowed me to work fewer hours while still earning enough to cover my expenses. Our relationship continued to improve, and we started spending more time together. We went out for dinner, watched movies, and even took a weekend trip to the countryside. Each moment we shared helped to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. I also continued to work hard in my classes, earning good grades and building a solid foundation for my future. My dad's faith in me gave me the motivation I needed to keep pushing forward, even when things got tough. One day, about a year after I had moved into the new apartment, I received a letter in the mail. It was from the university I had applied to, and my hands trembled as I opened it. "Dear Your Name," it read. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into our Bachelor of Business Administration program. Congratulations." I couldn't believe it. All the hard work, late nights, and sacrifices had paid off. I was going to university. I called my dad immediately to share the news. He was overjoyed and proud, and we celebrated together that evening. As I stood on the threshold of this new chapter in my life, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything that had brought me to this point. The mistakes I had made, the lessons I had learned, and the support of my dad had all shaped me into the person I had become. The years at university were challenging but rewarding. I made new friends, gained valuable knowledge and skills, and continued to grow as a person. My dad remained a constant source of support and encouragement, and our relationship grew stronger with each passing day. After graduation, I landed a job at a reputable company, working my way up the ladder and building a successful career. My dad's pride in me was evident, and it filled me with a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. Looking back, I realized that losing the apartment had been a turning point in my life. It had forced me to confront my mistakes, take responsibility for my actions, and work hard to rebuild my life and my relationship with my dad. It was a difficult journey, but one that had ultimately led to personal growth and a deeper understanding of the importance of trust, responsibility, and family. In the end, my dad and I found a new kind of bond, built on mutual respect, understanding, and love. We had faced challenges together, supported each other through difficult times, and come out stronger on the other side.